Welcome to Homekeepers. Hey, come right on in. If you haven't seen the program before, I'm Arthelene Rippy. We talk about the home, we talk about the things of God, just many subjects. And yesterday we began a series with Dr. Grady McMurtry, who made programs with us about 3 years ago, and he goes into depth on creationism. That's what we talked about before, and just a number of theological issues. And I have this hunch that there's a lot of you out there, you really like to get into the basics and the nitty-gritty of what these things mean, the symbolism of a lot of things in the Old Testament. And so we're talking today about the feasts of the Old Testament. And these, maybe you studied them, you know, at some point in Sunday school or something, but always wondered really what did it mean. And I can tell you they all point to Christ, but other than that, there's a lot of detail, and it has great meaning. And so Dr. McMurtry is with us again today, and we're going to be talking about the feasts of the Old Testament. Now, there's a lot of pastors, youth leaders, Sunday school teachers who could really benefit from this, because Dr. McMurtry's done all the hard work. I mean, he's gotten into the details, lined up the scriptures, and so forth. And so I thought it'd be a good idea to offer this to all of you wonderful Christians out there who have an interest in this. And we're offering it for that gift of at least $25 to the ministry. You can call us, 1-800-229-0059, or write to us at Homekeepers Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. And that is it's really kind of a big book. And so that covers shipping and handling and everything. So I urge all of you that have that curiosity about this subject to get it. It's going to bless your heart. And I've joined Stephanie over here. I didn't tell them what we're going to cook because it's such a secret.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's just a fun recipe.
It's a fun thing. It's
yummy.
Easy pull apart pizza bread.
It's like monkey bread.
Can you
but
say
it's pizza bread?
Teenager.
Yes, teenager or football, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we use 2 tubes of the
pizza. It's the pizza crust.
Yeah.
Or you could use biscuits. If you have biscuits in your refrigerator and you don't feel like going to the store and you have biscuits, chop up biscuits. Yeah. So all I'm doing is, there's oil in the bowl already, and I'm just chopping up the pizza. So that's as far as you get right there? That's all I get?
That's all you get. Yeah. Because I got to get busy with the spray over here.
She just wanted to pop it. She doesn't want to take it out.
Yeah.
So I just have pizza dough. I'm just taking the whole roll and I'm quartering it up here. I got some ragu sitting over here. You could, of course, make your own sauce.
Yeah, any kind of marinara.
I put Italian seasoning.
Pizza sauce.
I put Italian seasoning. I put garlic salt in there just to flavor it up.
Have you made anything like this at home?
Not like this, no. You know, we make pizzas, and I've made monkey bread, you know, of course, with the cinnamon and the brown sugar and everything,
yeah,
which
whoever
is the
thought
same.
of that? Really, they need honor.
Yeah, and then we have mozzarella cheese, we have Parmesan cheese, we have pepperoni, we have garlic salt and Italian seasoning. So we're gonna mix this all together. Here, you can show my towel.
Oh yeah.
So I went and saw because I'm just so excited and proud of it.
She hadn't seen her cousins in
over 30 years, and my Aunt Mary gave me this beautiful towel as a gift.
And we
were
show
up
it
there.
regularly because we love Aunt Mary.
Because I love it, and we love Aunt Mary. Yes.
Yes, we love it. That is a very pretty towel.
I love it. I'm never going to use it.
Okay, do you think that's a magnolia or a gardenia?
Yes.
Yes. No. That would be a yes.
So, yep, I'm just cutting this up. You can go ahead and throw some of that stuff in it.
Okay, this is 2 cups of mozzarella.
Oh, look at you, mozzarella.
Uh-huh. There's many ways to pronounce that.
I just cut my fingernail off. Okay. Oh. It's a surprise. It's the surprise in the pizza.
What, your fingernail?
Yeah, no, I found it. Okay, pepperoni. You can throw the pepperoni in there. Mm-hmm. You can throw the garlic salt in there.
If you wanted to do hamburger that you've already cooked up, that would work.
Sausage, ham, anything that goes on a pizza. You can do the garlic. The Italian. Look at you, you're cooking.
Italian seasoning.
Look, I'm rushing.
Garlic
and I'm
powder.
Cutting fingernails off. I got new knives for Christmas.
That amazes me.
And
Did your husband buy you knives?
Yes, because I asked for them. I'm very practical.
There's nothing romantic.
No, I'm so practical. If you're going to get me a gift, I want it to be something I can use. I don't just, and he got me a steam mop too, and I was thrilled. So But anyway, he got me knives.
She's not a normal woman.
Don't buy me jewelry.
No.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Something wrong with her.
Up and so
Okay.
anyway, he bought me new knives. I drew blood twice so far.
Well, okay, you have a sister in Montgomery, Alabama.
I do?
Yeah. I
okay.
called my son on
I
Christmas.
thought you were telling me something new. No.
I called my son on Christmas Day, and when he said hello, I thought, his voice is a little
Something,
flat.
yeah.
Something's wrong. He says, I'm in the emergency room. And for him, that's not totally unusual. She said, Terry got a knife, that's his wife, that she wanted. I've never asked for anybody to buy me a knife, but she had sliced, it must be quite a knife. She had 4 stitches in each finger.
Let me tell you,
What's the matter with you
it's
girls?
brand new knives. I was washing dishes. I simply put my hand down in the water. I wasn't even grabbing, and it sliced right across. Yep, I came up. I'm like, okay, twice, blood drawn.
What
They're
kind of a
Chicago?
what kind of a
It's
knife?
Chicago cutlery. It's a whole knife set. It has a sharpener right in the base, which I don't think I'll need to use.
I
for
want to
quite a-
know if any other woman out there ever wanted knives for
I
Christmas.
guarantee you they did.
Well,
Go on
let's
my
hear from you.
Go on my Facebook page or
Okay.
write to Arthelene
Yeah.
and tell her I am not the only practical woman here. Come
I
on
know,
now.
obviously my daughter-in-law.
So this
but
is a sprayed pan, a sprayed bunt pan is what you really want.
I would say the bunt pan is better, but.
So you just make sure it's sprayed good because you want this thing to come out. You
And
don't want it to stick
also
in there.
remember that
That's a lot of cheese, and I'm making a big
pizza dough
mess.
doesn't necessarily rise.
Right. So what's in there is in there.
Yeah,
Look at the mess I've made.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're usually better than that.
Yeah. So you bake that for 30 minutes.
So don't
And
be
look,
disappointed. It wasn't
yummy.
expected to rise.
No. Here you
Oh,
go.
you got to dip that. You don't pour it on it.
No, you're dipping.
Yeah, I'm going to dip. Right out of the pan. Right out of the pan.
Right out of the pan. That's what we do in the South.
I've never.
Hey, I eat out of pans at home if I don't feel like doing a lot of
Oh
dishes.
my.
Do you ever do that? Do you ever eat out of a pan
Oh,
at home?
yeah.
Okay. Because I don't like doing dishes.
You were talking about the South, though. I don't consider Florida South as
Yes.
far as Southern culture.
No, but geographically.
Geographically.
Oh, yes.
Wanda told me to bring her some up. So,
That's ridiculous.
yeah, in a
No.
way, it's a little bit easier.
I want more. I want more from you. Let's see it. That's good.
No, it's easier to eat than a pizza. You know, it's not the great
It's
big.
so delicious.
All right, while we enjoy this, I want you to enjoy a good work from Dr. McMurtry. I love getting these people that have so much wisdom and they're so brilliant and intelligent, and glad to bring them to you. So here we are again.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, just write to the address on your screen, or you can email your request to arthelene@rippy.org.
All right, Dr. McMurtry, we talked about, on the last program, we talked about the feasts and just skimmed over the top of them because there's so many, and they all, have a lot of depth. One thing that I wanted to bring up first, and that is how the Jewish people write their history and remember, even now, we're constantly reminded of the Holocaust. There have been situations where more people were killed in other parts of the world, but they keep that
Yes.
very much alive.
Remember that Jews are the culture that will not be assimilated, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what country, no matter what language.
That's interesting.
Remember that this is the people. Remember, Balaam was a Gentile, genuine prophet of God. Now, he ended badly, in the same way that Solomon started good but ended badly.
Thought he
The
had a
same
great
way-
idea.
Or the same way that Hezekiah started good but ended badly. But Balaam was a Gentile, not a Jew, who was a true prophet of God. And when he's asked to curse the people, he says, you can't do it. This is a people that will not be assimilated. So regardless of whether they are in the diaspora or not, regardless of what country they're in, no matter what language they speak is a native tongue, the vernacular of that language, you know, in Russian, the Russian Jews or whatever, they remain Jewish.
Boy, I never thought of that, and I've lived to see Israel become a state. I've lived to see them coming from all parts of the world.
The diaspora
go
being
right back.
regathered in fulfillment of end-time prophecy.
And a light bulb went on in my head when he said they will not be assimilated.
Will not be assimilated. And therefore, what do? For instance, at Passover. At Passover, when we go through the Haggadah, where we're doing the Seder, we are recapping the entire history, literally, of God's deliverance and repeating all these things. And in the feasts, we celebrate each of these things throughout the year. The 7 major feasts, the minor feasts. There are some feasts in the Bible that are not biblical. They're not God-given. The Feast of Esther. And I talk about that in my book on the feast. I talk about all the 7 major feasts and the minor feasts that go along with them, and then I talk about various feasts that are not biblical. So Purim is not a biblical feast. Hanukkah, although mentioned as Jesus being in Jerusalem at the time of the celebration of Hanukkah, is not a God-given feast.
Now, a lot of people here make a
feast.
big deal out of it.
But it's not a God-given feast. Now, it is mentioned in the Bible.
Sure.
But in the New Testament, it's not mentioned in the Old Testament because the Old Testament was completed before that period of time even existed. So when you look at Hanukkah, it comes from the Apocrypha, from the 1st and 2nd book of Maccabees.
So the feasts and all of this, is this the reason we have such really minute, intricate Jewish history, unlike any other
Well,
any other group?
It is unique because every year they repeat it, going through the cycle.
There you go.
7 major feasts, the minor feasts, the plan of God every year is repeated every year, so you cannot escape it.
How many still do that might hit all the feasts?
Oh,
Just the Orthodox?
well, obviously the Orthodox would, the conservatives would, reformers will celebrate them simply because it's all a part of the Jewish culture and history. And of course, we as Christians can celebrate them, not to Judaize in any way, shape, or form, but just to remind ourselves of how they apply to us, because the Old Testament feasts do apply to us as in the New Testament as Christians. There is nothing in the New that you cannot find in the Old, et cetera, et cetera. Even the word gospel is in the Old Testament. It's just in a different word because it's Hebrew, but it's the same thing as the Greek gospel.
Yeah, God constantly in the Old Testament say, remember, you know, and you had the Ebenezer, it said, hitherto hath the Lord helped us. And on the last program we did, we ran out of time, but I wanted to highlight again where it says, I think it's Deuteronomy and somewhere else, you shall teach these things to your children.
Deuteronomy 6.
And we got Christians out there who, excuse me, but I'm very much deeply involved in church work and always have been. They'll gripe, you know, they'll say, well, my pastor doesn't feed me, blah, 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 and this. And we can criticize the youth group and we can criticize all this, but you shall teach these things to your children. You teach them the important things, and you teach them by your life and when you walk along the way and when you rise up and when you lie down.
And we as teachers or pastors, I mean, I'm a teacher, but pastors, teachers, and so forth, we are to train the saints so that they will do the work of the ministry.
Yeah.
What happened to study to show yourself approved? You know, you're not supposed to be sitting in a pew with your mouth open like a newborn chick being fed and not be able to do anything. No. You know, I love what Paul talks about. He says, you know, talking about the gifts of the Spirit and everything else, he says, now that we've done them with the milk, let's go into the meat. You know, I love that one.
Get you off the pablum.
Yeah, the gifts of the Spirit, that's just the starter. You know, that's just the milk. Now let's go on to the meat. And so we are responsible for learning and we're responsible for teaching.
Yeah, and that goes Old Testament, New Testament alike.
Absolutely.
Okay, we were talking about the Passover, and I mentioned that we would be talking about the Feast of Pentecost, and Pentecost means 50, right?
Well, that's just the word Pentecost comes from counting 50 days, counting the Omar, the sheaves.
50 days from what?
When we take a look at, it's in the month of Sivan, but 50 days from when we start out with Passover. And what's the significance? Well, first of all, most people like you and I would think of Pentecost in terms of both the Old Testament Pentecost and the New Testament Pentecost. When you read in the book of Numbers the things that occurred in the book of Acts also occurred in the desert with Moses, with the elders. They spoke in tongues, there was wind, there was fire, and so forth.
They spoke in tongues in the Old Testament?
Yes, ma'am.
I've been around a long, long time. I've never heard that.
Well, you need to take another look. But in Numbers, when the 70 elders were prophesying and everything else, 2 were left behind. And people came to Moses and said, well, those 2 aren't out there doing that. Do you want us to go get them and, you know, kill them or whatever? And he says, are you kidding?
Yeah.
You know? So we see the exact same event that occurs at Pentecost in the book of Acts. The difference is that at that time the Holy Spirit did not yet come to be resident, because Jesus had not come, because Jesus is the one who really baptizes with the Holy Spirit, of course. And so since he hadn't come and hadn't resurrected yet, but in the book of Acts he has come, and now the Holy Spirit can come and be resident. And this goes back to John chapter 14. I will ask the Father will send you another, meaning equal but different, the one called the Helper, Comforter, Counselor, or Lawyer. It's the same word in the Greek. And he will be with you forever. Why? Because Jesus is at the right hand of the Father in heaven. But the Holy Spirit is the one who comes to earth now and can be resident. But at the time of Moses, that wasn't possible. So he comes for a day, but we do see certain individual people who not only baptize in the Holy Spirit, but remain so in the Old Testament, such as Joshua and Caleb. And in the Old Testament terminology is they had a special spirit of faith, but this is an Old Testament terminology for baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and I have a grandson named Caleb, and I love that scripture said he obeyed the Lord fully.
Fully.
There are not very many people you can say that about.
No, actually, I love that too. And of the 2, Caleb's my favorite because he was the consistent, constant backer, you know, with
and full
Joshua.
of faith.
And full of faith. And what I really like about him is he comes to Joshua after having gone into the land and helping everybody else get their part. And then he goes to Joshua and says, now I want my part. You know, I'm 80 years old, my strength is still with me and so forth, and I want Hebron. Because that was the cave of Abraham, the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. And this is where he and Joshua brought the grapes back. And he said, I've been there, I've seen it, that's what I want. And what does Joshua say? He says, go, brother, it's yours.
That's one. I'm going to tell my grandson about that. I'm going to be seeing him tonight. What's the significance of numbers if Pentecost means 50?
Well, of course, 50
basically
deals with anointing. It deals with Pentecost, the year of Jubilee. That's all.
Okay, and you talk about 8. Number 8 has a lot of significance.
Well, I talk about all kinds of numbers and their basic significance.
How's that different than numerology?
Well, no, I don't get into numerology. That's a study of numbers. You can do that as a secular thing. But what we're talking about is what's called theomatics. Now, theos, God. Theomatics, God's mathematics. And we see how, and I give a very strict warning, and I mean to anybody listening, never, ever take numbers beyond what they're intended to mean. But they have biblical typology nonetheless. 1, 3, 7, 10, numbers associated with God.
Yeah.
Why? God is one God, but he's, you know,
3 and 1.
the triune God, 3 and 1. But 7 is 4 and 3. Well, 4 is the number of nature. For instance, there's 4 dimensions. There's 4 points to a compass. And when you have 7 as that perfect number, what happens? The 4, which is the number of nature, 3, the number of God, when you have the 2 together in perfect harmony, you get 7, which is a state of perfection.
I'm glad you kind of put out that warning because I have had I've had people come to me and they had this big visitation from God, some kind of a number, and never going to happen.
I tell people, never take them beyond. I'm just absolutely serious about it. Never take them beyond. And if anybody ever comes to you and says, well, if you take this number times that number and divide by this one, you immediately know it's not God.
Yeah. You say there are 3 fall feasts. Is that autumn?
Well, you might say that, but there are 7 major feasts. 4 occur in the, quote, spring. So 3 occur within 8 days. So you have Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which starts on so Passover is on the 14th. That's the day you slay the lamb. The 15th is the day you eat the lamb, and that begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But then on the 17th, that's first fruits. And so within an 8-day period, you have the 3. Then 50 days later, of course, you're going to have Pentecost, which occurs in May. Then you have this long dry season, so to speak, in the summer, when there's not much. There's some minor feasts that are important, like the 17th day of Tammuz. This is the day that Nebuchadnezzar's army destroyed, not the first temple, but they destroyed the sacrifices. They stopped the sacrifices in the first temple on the 17th day of Tammuz in 586 BC. It's the same day the Romans stopped the celebration in the in the New Testament at the time of Herod's temple being destroyed. And then on the 9th of Av, Tishrei B'Av, that's the destruction of the first temple and the destruction of the second temple. So that both the stopping of the sacrifices and the destruction of the temples occurred on exactly the same day of the calendar, but spread out over 600 years of time.
Wow. And that's all in this book that we're talking about. I often tell my audience that you've done all the work, so if any of you want to teach on this, just read it, understand it, teach it. We're going to run out of time again. Various offerings, the guilt offering. Lord, I wonder how many times I've presented that one. A sin offering, peace.
Yeah, well, the Hatat, the Yasham offerings and so forth. Really, if you'll just read the first 6 chapters of Leviticus, you have the 5 major feasts, or I'm sorry, 5 major sacrifices. And they start with the burnt and then go down to what's called the trespass offering. But that's exactly what you would expect. God writes of the 5 sacrifices from the one that's closest to him, the one that's farthest away. So you have the burnt offering, and then you go to the meal offering, then you go to the communion offering, then down to the sin and trespass offerings. We, as human beings, experience them in exactly the opposite direction. So as you approach God, you've got to deal with the sins against God and man. Then you move up to the second, which is dealing with the sins against God alone. But in the third, you deal with communion, the peace offering, the communion offering, where the sacrifice is not for sin, but the sacrifice is that you have communion with God. The grain offering, you're dealing with a work of service acceptable to God, and the burnt offering, total, complete commitment.
And these had a lot of detail, and I've always kind of been interested in the dietary laws of the Old Testament, and those animals had to be killed a certain way.
And that goes right back to Genesis chapter 1.
And all the blood had to drain out, right?
Well, it had to have all the blood drained, and that was part of the health laws, the kosher laws. But when we take a look at that, of course, we see many symbols associated with that. And Jesus was talking about this in the New Testament. You know, he says, when you're taking your offering to God and you remember something about an offense to another, put your offering to God down, because that's the second offering, the one between you and God. Go make it right with your brother, then come back and give your offering to God. So you have to make the first offering first. You can't make them out of order.
I've often thought of that in the New Testament where Jesus spoke, because I've been in the church all my life, and it says, bring your offering, but if you remember, you have aught against your brother, go make it right with your brother, and then I'll accept your offering. And I've thought, I said, I've never seen that. Perhaps it's happened, but
that's why when you are a Christian, you can't jump to the third sacrifice. You can't jump to communion with God without having gone through the first 2 in the right order. I've often put it this way, and maybe you can correct me, but we try to live our lives this way, vertically to God, and He's saying my way's horizontal, and that you got to love one another. You know, he who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And what is His commandment? This is my commandment, that you love one another. Well, indeed, what are the keys to the kingdom? If you will read that chapter and then go on and read another chapter or 2 afterwards, the keys to the kingdom are right relationship with God and man, or woman, of course. But it's the right relationship with God and our other fellow human beings.
I think it's pretty thought-provoking that you bring an offering, and He said, I don't want it till you make it right with your brother. Not sure that we're taught those things enough, and maybe if we were, we would practice them more.
Well, again, take a look at the sacrifices with Cain and Abel. What was wrong? Cain brought an acceptable offering, but it was not acceptable for that occasion. He was supposed to be bringing a sin offering. He brought a vegetable offering, which is fine for praise and worship, but can't cover sin, whereas Abel brought a sin offering that was with blood. And so God says to Cain, you know, what you brought's fine, not a problem, but it's the
wrong
wrong
one.
thing. Go back and get the right thing and bring it, and all will be well. And Cain says, take what I give you or nothing. You know, it's my way or the highway, and he went the highway.
We are out of time, but I really want to thank you for just plumbing the depths of things that the rest of us might not understand. And
Well, a scientific study of the feast can really be very enlightening.
And so much more than we could ever imagine, the depths, the meaning of them, and that they do point to Christ. But don't miss the next program, because I'm very excited about it. We're going to talk about marriage from a view of creation. Never thought of that before, but he has. So stay with me. I have a couple things to say before we have to say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy. You may contact Homekeepers by writing to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, or go to www.rippy.org. Remember, we always enjoy hearing from our viewers, and we thank you for your support.
And the book we were constantly referring to can be yours if you're interested. It's The Feasts of the Old Testament by Dr. Grady S. McMurtry, and we are offering it to the Homekeepers viewers for a gift of at least $25. If you use a credit card or debit card, anything like that, just call 1-800-229-0059, and that address is on your screen if you want to write to us. And that's Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. I'm just so sure that you're really going to enjoy the next 3 days with Dr. McMurtry, and I think it's just so good to just kind of come aside and listen to a good teacher, one who has really gone over things with a fine-tooth comb, has written about it and all, and it's very, very helpful to the rest of us. So hope you'll take advantage of that offer to just expand your own knowledge of the Bible. It's very important in these days and times when, you know, it's not allowed in school. It's being taken more and more from the public view. But the psalmist said, I've hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. So don't forget the importance of knowing, reading, and learning the scripture. We are out of time, but I hope you'll join me next time. And remember, there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.